Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brian at Bitcoin Summer. Thank you for joining me today. Another lovely week in Bitcoin world. I wanted to start off today by talking about I went to my first Bitcoin meetup. My wife encouraged me to do it. Here locally, there's one that's been going on since 2017, which I knew nothing about until a couple months ago. It's been on my calendar. Haven't been able to get away from my 2-year-old long enough to do it until Thursday, and I gotta tell you guys, get out locally and go to your local Bitcoin meetups. You will not be sorry that you did. I'm so bullish on Bitcoiners. I'm so bullish on Bitcoin right now. This was a great event. It was a third birthday for Lolly. It's an app that you can use, and if you shop through their partner sites, they give you sats back. Such a great way to ingrain people automatically into the Bitcoin world, giving them a bonus on top of their purchases. They are not a sponsor with me. I downloaded it last week because I was going to this party. I had heard of it, but I had never used it before. Put it on my phone. Already made a purchase on running shoes. I did a breakdown on Twitter of all of the money that I saved. Basically, I got my shoes at a 57% discount by my calculations. So kind of an amazing app. It's great. Put on top of your Fold app stack and your passive earning from your BlockFi credit card app. You got sats coming in from all over the place, and at the end of the decade, you are going to be very, very happy that you did. And I just don't understand how people are not bullish. We have apps like these out in the wild right now that are making shopping fun. They're making shopping earn you money back. I just don't understand why people just don't see this massive adoption right now. And that's kind of what today's episode is about. Before we jump into the episode, though, I also wanted to mention, hung out with some family over the weekend. It was a fantastic time, which is why this podcast is a couple days late. You always got to spend time with family, so that's number one importance to me. But I want to make sure to get these episodes out in a regular fashion. And most of my extra free time is spent doing this podcast, so I'm doing as much as I can to get the information out there to you guys. So I hope you can be patient with me. And if it's a couple days late, I'm so sorry about that. But I'm going to try to get back on a regular schedule here going forward. But I spent some time with family over the weekend, and I was pretty encouraged, and I got some good encouragement for the podcast, and I got some great feedback from some family members about the direction of the podcast. So I'm really, really excited about getting some new information out here and creating more of presentations to you all, to kind of have concise episodes where it's not so meandering. The first kind of 10 episodes were kind of all over the place because my producer and I wanted to kind of bring everything together into one product and to start at the basics and get a little bit more complicated from there. But in doing so, it becomes a little bit more drowned out and a little bit more complicated because you're not just focusing on one thing per episode specifically. And so now going forward, I'm going to be doing more of one specific topic, presentation on it, and hopefully you guys like it that way. If not, I'd like some feedback on that as well if it's not working out. But it's just great to hear feedback from people. And also, we were talking about paying off your mortgage. I was talking about this with my brother-in-law, and it's hard to communicate sometimes with friends and family who are so ingrained about, I need to be off debt, I need to be completely debt-free. But when you try to explain them after you've already been orange-pilled, after you've been awoken from the matrix, you have a hard time explaining to some people sometimes that, well, maybe paying off your mortgage isn't the best thing to do, or paying it off quicker, putting extra payments into your principal. It's just the way that I see the world. I don't find it advisable. And so I was able to convince my brother-in-law not to put any more money besides his minimum payments every month into his mortgage. And we had a very quick discussion about it, and he was a quick learner, and he was like, I'm stopping it tomorrow. And that was an amazing turnaround, because I've also been frustrated with other friends that haven't been so receptive to that idea. They're kind of stuck in their philosophical beliefs when you kind of point out the financial side of it, and it just doesn't make any sense. Therefore, I will be doing an episode coming up. I have the outline written already, and that will be coming up soon, specifically about paying off your mortgage and why it doesn't make sense to pay off your mortgage quicker than you need to. Keep that debt, that good debt, as long as possible. I have another complete episode about this, an entire debt episode, so go back and listen to that first. It's a fantastic episode. It's one of my favorite ones so far. It's super, super important to get rid of all of your bad debt before you invest. But that doesn't mean get rid of your student loans and getting rid of your mortgages, and I explain all of that on that episode, and I'm going to go into even greater detail by myself coming up down the road. So let's jump into the episode today. I'm going to be talking about, can we reach Plan B's model within the next 12 months of $100,000 Bitcoin? Can we reach that now, or did we get so derailed this year by all the FUD, by all the Elon bullshit? Did we get so derailed that we can't hit that, and we're just going to have to look further and further out into the timeline? I believe that it's very highly likely that we can at least reach that $100,000 level within the next 12 months. In fact, probably, by my estimation, within the next 6 to 7 months. But again, don't ever make any trades or investment decisions based on this podcast alone. Please do your own research at home, and don't over-lever yourself. Don't use leverage at all. Dollar cost average in. You never know where this price is going to go, and you never know how far it's going to go down in the short term. But in the long run, the scarcity makes this such a no-brainer play that Bitcoin should be in your portfolio no matter what, if we're looking at it just as an investment vehicle. As you guys know who listen to this podcast, I believe in it in more of a philosophical belief as well, but it's also a great thing for me because I also believe in it as a really, really, really one of the best asymmetrical risk to reward trades that you can do in your that you will probably ever be able to do in your lifetime. So I'm going to break down today how we can get to that $100,000 level. So let's jump into the episode right now. This is Bitcoin Summer. Okay, let's jump into the presentation here. So, one of my metrics that I'm going to be using during this podcast and during this presentation is the market cap gain per US dollar invested. So, what does that mean? A lot of people I've seen online get very, very bearish because they're like, if we're going to add $1 trillion, let's say, to the market cap, where are we going to find that other $1 trillion in the open market to pump our bags? Where does that money come from? That's a ton of money. Well, here's the interesting part. $1 invested in the Bitcoin network doesn't equate to $1 rise in market cap, and I will show you why. Basically, this is due to scarcity of Bitcoin, and it has a multiplier effect to how many dollars you add into the system. So it's not a one-to-one deal. $1 trillion added into the system does not equate to a $1 trillion raise in market cap. It's a multiplier, and we're going to discuss why that is. All right, so can we reach Plan B's stock to flow targets? Let's take a look here. So this is a couple days ago. So the current market cap for Bitcoin a couple days ago, August 25th, $920 billion. So we're hovering just below that $50,000 level. And this fluctuates because the coins on the market, the coins that are available on the market, it goes up. It goes up a small percentage, but it does go up. So let's take a look at this Bitcoin market cap per US dollar invested. This is from Willy Woo. It's at woolboocharts.com. And you can see here by this little chart I have in the corner, it's a little blurry, but you can I just wanted to, for visual sake, you can see it, this fluctuates up and down. Right now it's sitting at 2.8x. So what that means is for every dollar that you invest, it raises the market cap by 2.8 times. That's a huge increase. It's a huge multiplier to the amount of money you have to put into Bitcoin in order for the market cap to raise to these crazy levels that people keep putting out there into the world, like Plan B. So when people say, oh, we have to add $1 trillion, where is that going to come from? It's actually not $1 trillion that you have to add. So let's continue on here. So let's take a journey back when we first hit $1 trillion market cap. We first reached that February 20th. That was this year, February 20th, 2021. The approximate price when we reached that was $56,000. Now, with the current supply, since that has increased since February, is 18,797,000 Bitcoin that are circulating right now. So that means that we've had this drop, and for it to climb 80 billion in market cap, so that'll get us to the 1 trillion market cap, you don't need to inject $80 billion into it. Each dollar is a ripple effect. Like I said before, 2.8 times. So only $28.57 billion needs to be invested in order for the price to move for the $1 trillion market cap. So at today's supply rate, that will mean Bitcoin will be at $53,000. And that's only an 8% climb from where we're at right now. Let's take a look at the next slide here. Journey to 100,000 Bitcoin. And this is the S2F model. So this is what I'm talking about with the Plan B model. So the journey to $100,000, what could that mean for the market cap? By the way, I'm going through this PowerPoint presentation. I'm not going crazy, so people who are listening on the podcast, don't worry about it. I'm not going to get overly visual, but if you are a visual learner, this is also up on the YouTube page, a Bitcoin Summary YouTube page, so check that out as well. Give me a subscribe over there. If you're watching on YouTube, go check out the podcast, and if you're taking a jog or if you're doing the dishes, you can listen to this, just the audio as well on our podcast. So anyways, journey to the 100,000 Bitcoin level. This has kind of been the target for a long time. It's definitely been the target for 2021. People are really, really excited about hitting this level. First time this was reached was never. So again, current supply is almost 19 million Bitcoin. So it needs to climb 1.88 trillion to reach that $100,000 Bitcoin level. This will overtake the market cap of Facebook at that time. We need to add 960 billion to the market cap from our current level, but we only need people to put in $343 billion, and that will bring us to 100,000 Bitcoin. So as you can see, this multiplier is a very, very powerful thing, this market cap ripple effect that each dollar puts in. And when Bitcoin was around $1 trillion, this multiplier was around 3, and it hovered around 3. It went a little bit above, it went a little bit below, but it was hovering even higher than we were today because that fluctuates with how fast the price is moving, if that makes any sense. So if we're on a huge, huge tear up, that means each dollar injected has a greater impact on the price. And that's why that market cap multiplier fluctuates, because each dollar you put in has a greater effect as the price skyrockets up. So that'd be 104% price climb from here. So essentially that's a 2x from here. So let's take a look at the next slide here. The S2FX model will get us to $288,000 Bitcoin. Also, you could look at it this way. It's just the S2F model, so the stock to flow model, but with a blow off top. So we reach that 100,000, but the FOMO is happening so fast that a blow off top would look like a $288,000 Bitcoin. So it depends on which way you want to look at it. But either way, Plan B plans that we're going to have $100,000 Bitcoin to $288,000 Bitcoin. So that's the range that we're going to be looking at within the next 12 months if Plan B's calculations are correct. Obviously, we've never reached this level before, the 288K. We need to climb $5.4 trillion in the market cap. By this point, it'll overtake Apple. It'll be bigger than the largest market cap of any company, but it'll fall short of the entire market cap for gold, which is hovering around $11 trillion if you take everything into effect, even gold on people's fingers and jewelry and things like that. So total global market cap of gold is 11 trillion. It's going to take Bitcoin quite a while to get there, but some people think it's going to be quicker than others. Some people don't think it's going to get there at all. I happen to believe that it will. But timeline, that's a little bit harder to predict in the near term. So we need to add 4.49 billion to the current market cap level to get there. And so that would need to inject 1.6 trillion US dollars into Bitcoin. That's a 488% climb from here. So that's a 5 or 6x from here. Kind of wild stuff here. So if you're looking at the S2FX model, we need a 5 or 6x from here. That's 488% climb, but we would only have to add $1.6 trillion to increase the market cap by that much. So let's look at how these prices could be reached just from certain announcements that are potentially going to be made here in the near term, which I think are going to be the next big catalysts for the price movement. We're kind of in this consolidation phase and move up phase. Consolidation, move up. We're kind of in that since that $29,000 level midsummer. Now that we're moving into the fall, a lot of people are thinking fall is going to look really good for the price and we're going to start seeing some FOMO and everything like that. But if we get these catalysts that are going to boost the price even more, everything just starts piling on top of each other. You got FOMO retail investors coming in, but also you'll have more institutions coming in because they're thinking that the train is leaving the station, which they are right. The train is going to be leaving the station here pretty soon. We're not going to be able to buy Bitcoin under $50,000 for a long time. Granted, it might have a crazy FUD drop later on down the line, and we could see these levels again. But I just have this sinking suspicion that we will not see below 30 ever again. So those were your last chances to buy at $30,000. And if we do see it below $30,000 again, back the truck up, buy all you can. That's my advice to you. So let's take a look at these companies right here. So we have Square, we have PayPal, we have MicroStrategy, we have Tesla, we have Coinbase. So I just have this chart that I made right here. So these companies, some of them generate money from Bitcoin. So I have this listed right here. So the companies that do generate and the companies that don't. Oddly enough, the two companies with the biggest allocations, besides Square, do not make any money off of Bitcoin directly. They do it from selling other products. MicroStrategy sells software, Tesla sells cars and batteries and things like that. So I just did a simple calculation here as to the annualized revenue that these companies are generating and their annual income that they're generating from the Bitcoin. Now, Square is an interesting case because on an annualized basis, they're going to be pulling in $12.4 billion with a B dollars from Bitcoin alone. The reason why I mention this is, do you think Apple and Google or Alphabet, their parent company, do you think that they are going to sit back and let Square put $12.4 billion on their sale chart every single year? No. The answer is no, they will not. So the fact that we haven't seen any of these announcements from Apple or from Google or from even Amazon shocks me. And I don't know how much longer this is going to go on for. It could go on for years, apparently. But they're looking at these numbers, too. Now, Square still spends a lot of money in order to service this Bitcoin revenue. So their income, that what the profit is only $256 million per year. But as they scale up, these margins are going to get better and better. As they become a bigger player, this will become better and better. Strike's going to be eating their lunch down the road, but that's for a whole nother discussion. When companies start adopting the Lightning Network, you're going to see these numbers get blown out of the water, because when you're reducing the fees, the customers come in. And that's what's going to be happening with the Strike app, in my opinion. So I have the number of Bitcoin owned by all of these companies: 8,000 for Square, 109,000 Bitcoin for MicroStrategy, 43,000 for Tesla, just over 4,000 for Coinbase. And they actually just finally started to ramp that up a little bit. As you can see here, I did the percent of current assets for these companies. I thought it was an easier way to gauge how much of their balance sheet they're putting into Bitcoin. And this was interesting to me, because I would have guessed something like MicroStrategy would have had the highest percentage. Now we're going off of current assets, so it depends on how many current, or how much they have in current assets. So obviously, MicroStrategy has a lot more money sitting in their current asset balance sheet. But suffice it to say, Tesla made a huge, big time bet on Bitcoin. I don't think the price moved up like crazy when they announced, but I still don't think people realize Elon Musk made a huge bet on Bitcoin. And the fact that he was spreading all of that environmental FUD around it is just interesting, because he only sold like a tiny little portion of it to check liquidity, is what he said, but he kept most of it because he knows the upside of Bitcoin. Doge is not on Tesla's balance sheet. Sorry, folks. It's just not. So this is just interesting to me. But so I have percentage of current assets, and I have the original allocation as well. So you can see all of these, they're making profit off of their Bitcoin, as you can see. So these companies are now making profit off their Bitcoin. PayPal still hasn't announced a Bitcoin purchase. So in my opinion, that's got to be coming down the road. How are they not holding any Bitcoin? Because people are purchasing Bitcoin through their app. So they must be custodying with somebody else. But that's going to create way more cost for them. So they're going to have to start keeping some of it in-house. Now that this plan is working for them, they're making $2 billion annualized on this, and that number is only going up. To me, it's a no-brainer. They're going to have to put it on the balance sheet at some point. Like I said, Coinbase, they don't even register, because they only put $220 million in so far into Bitcoin, and it worked out to be about 0% of their current assets. So they just have a minuscule amount. But they did just announce this future allocation that they're going to be putting in. And per month, I calculated that they're going to be putting in $26 million just in Bitcoin every single month. MicroStrategy is going to be doing, if we even just calculated 80% of the pace that they've been doing, so let's say they drop their pace by 20%, they're still going to be putting in $156 million per month into Bitcoin. And like I said, there's a money multiplier on that. So it's not just adding 156 million, it's adding much, much more than that. And I did that calculation on the next slide here. So the MicroStrategy dollar cost average, it's currently 196 million per month on average by my calculations. If Michael Saylor's pace slows 20%, that's still 156 million per month, like I just said. With the multiplier, Saylor alone will be adding $500 million to the market cap every month. $500 million with a B every month. That's a $2 billion market cap increase for the next 12 months for MicroStrategy alone. $2 billion for just one company in the next 12 months. Now, Coinbase just made their announcement. Coinbase just made their DCA announcement, dollar cost averaging announcement, not too long ago, just within the last week or two. It will immediately almost double their Bitcoin allocation, so that's cool. So it's adding they're going to add $250 million onto their Bitcoin allocation. Still minuscule compared to their current assets. So come on, Coinbase, get on this. But they will continue to add around $26 million every single month because it's going to be based off of their profits, and they're going to do a percentage of what people on their app are buying. So it's around 50%, 40 to 50% for Bitcoin. So if you do that calculation, it's $26 million every single month. So that'll be adding $354 million to the Bitcoin network by year end. And with the market cap multiplier, that's $992 million. So almost $1 billion with a B dollars in market cap increase during the next 12 months for Coinbase alone. So only those two companies will be increasing the Bitcoin market cap by $3 billion. Now let's just imagine what's going to happen when other companies start piling in 1%. Let's just go 1% of their current assets. Now, there are some companies that will be incorporating Bitcoin into payment wallets, and I think Apple and Google will be the biggest contenders for that. Facebook, will see. They've been wishy-washy on the Bitcoin thing because they wanted to start their own currency and all this other stuff. Microsoft, who knows? Maybe they'll want to get into the wallet space like Square is going to be doing. I think Apple and Google are going to be the biggest Bitcoin payment systems of all time because people have adopted their products already. They already have them in their pockets. So the onboarding to Bitcoin and sorry to say other cryptocurrency is going to be very, very, very easy. Now, like I said, we're going to be taking the 1% of the current assets. So let's say for Amazon, that means a Bitcoin purchase of 1.3 billion, 1.1 billion for Apple, 1.7 billion for Google, 810 million for Facebook, 1.8 billion for Microsoft if they start FOMOing in, putting a little bit of their balance, just a minuscule amount of their balance sheet into Bitcoin. So at the bottom, I have all of the market cap increases with our market cap multiplier. 3.7 billion for Amazon, 3.2 for Apple, 4.9 billion for Google, 2.3 billion for Facebook, and 5.2 billion for Microsoft. These 5 companies alone would increase the market cap of Bitcoin by $19 billion with just a 1% allocation. Not to mention the positive market sentiment this is going to create, obviously, when these companies start announcing. And I think this is imminent. I think this is going to happen sooner than we think. Perhaps the next 12 months, perhaps the next 24 months. But once this starts happening, the dominoes come down very quickly. So let's move on here. Now, Apple Pay, like I was mentioning before, Apple Pay and Google Pay integration, they're the most likely to have wallet integration for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. They're going to go on board with everything, but the biggest portion obviously is going to be Bitcoin. That's the way that it is. So Apple Pay currently right now has 44 million users. Google Pay has 25 million users. So let's use a banking example from the last episode. 50% of bank customers said that they would be willing to buy Bitcoin if they had the opportunity right now through their bank accounts. So let's say half of these people that have Apple Pay and Google Pay already on their phones, let's say half of them decide to get into Bitcoin. That's 35 million users that'll be directly onboarded to Bitcoin. 35 million overnight once Apple and Google announce this. Let's say each person holds about $10 of Bitcoin on their wallet just to check it out. Let's just say it starts there. Let's just be very modest. Let's just say it starts at $10. That alone would move the market cap by $10 billion. Just those purchases, not the announcement, which will increase it probably tenfold above that. But $10 billion for just the purchase. Now think about what that's going to do to the market cap multiplier. Now you're starting to get an idea of how crazy these numbers can get. Now these companies that I listed, that's 24% of the S&P 500, those big 5 tech companies. So if those companies start doing this, it's going to create a standard for the S&P. They're going to have to try to keep up with these companies. They have 24% of the S&P market cap. It's going to flip from an anomaly to a necessity. It's all a game theory. For them to remain competitive, it's going to have to flip. And let's say only half of the S&P 500 companies, let's go back to that banking example. Let's say only half of them put in 1%. That's going to raise the Bitcoin market cap by $40 billion. So we're talking about a $62 billion to a $420 billion increase in market cap, combining all of those factors that I just talked about with the MicroStrategy DCAing, with Apple Pay and Google Pay, and then 1% of half of the S&P 500 companies putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. The way I calculated that was a 1 to 5% allocation for these for half of the S&P 500 companies, and a $10 to $20 wallet allocation for these Google Pay and Apple Pay users. What does that mean for the price? So like I said, we're going to set the floor. So the market's going to take this news in, right? Now, I would say the market would have an expectation for a 5% allocation of half of the S&P. That I'm thinking that that's a pretty conservative guess. I'm saying that's very conservative. That would bring us to $1.34 trillion Bitcoin market cap, which will bring us to $71,286 Bitcoin alone, just on this announcement. I think on Apple announcing putting 1% of their current assets into Bitcoin would single-handedly raise the price of Bitcoin to $71,000, right past all-time highs. And what does that do for market sentiment? That it's just a cascading effect. All of these shorts are going to get wrecked. We're going to see this thing inching towards 100,000 towards the end of the year if we get that announcement soon. So let's talk about, I mentioned the last episode when I was talking about NYDIG onboarding banks. So let's talk about the deposits on banks. Let's talk about the people who have money in bank accounts. So half of U.S. bank customers have already said that they were interested in buying Bitcoin if they had the option to do it through their checking account. NYDIG is onboarding 20% of banks. They're going to have Bitcoin on-ramps for 20% of banks within 12 months, they said. Go back to last episode. It's an interesting one. $17 trillion on deposit at banks right now. So that would mean a $3 trillion exposure to Bitcoin. Let's say a 5% adoption through that $3 trillion, $150 billion market cap, $150 billion injection into Bitcoin, which would equate to a $420 billion market cap increase. So that would bring us to a 1.8 trillion market cap just from those banks onboarding clients alone. Not the news, just the money flowing into Bitcoin. That would bring us to almost $94,000 Bitcoin. That's without Apple announcing. So we're starting to stack all of these things together, and that's getting us to in between. Now you're starting to see that's getting us in between $100,000 and $288,000. Again, we need these catalysts to start working. Bitcoin's going to have its adoption naturally, and you can see that with long-term hodlers, but these catalysts don't hurt. They only help. So what the fuck will an ETF mean for the price of Bitcoin? Now, I found this interesting little tidbit from JP Morgan they sent out to investors. It was right around the end of 2020, beginning of 2021. They foresee Bitcoin already, they don't foresee it. They have witnessed Bitcoin already gobble up money from the gold ETFs. And the gold ETFs, what did that do for gold? That created a 5x in just the gold price in 10 years. That's not the market cap of gold. That's just the price of gold. Now, this is last year. And now in 2021, we have seen the gold price not plummet, but it's gone down. And it should be going up with what inflation is doing right now. It's going in the wrong direction. But in 2020, inflows to Grayscale was $3 billion. Outflows from gold ETFs was $7 billion. So now we're talking about Bitcoin demonetizing gold in the form of ETFs. So if we have an ETF announcement in the United States, JP Morgan is seeing an instant $146,000 Bitcoin that you can see at the bottom here. Now, they don't give a timeline, and these never do. But in my opinion, like I said, the market is forward-looking. An ETF approval announcement, in my opinion, will almost immediately get us over that $100,000 hump. Now, if we have those other good news pieces that I talked about before in this discussion, we're going to see it even crazier than that. Now, a $2.7 trillion match to gold's ETF will get us to about a $1.8 trillion in capital. That's a $6 trillion market cap and a $319,000 Bitcoin price. Now, like I said, we don't have a timeline on when Bitcoin ETF could overtake gold ETF, the $2.7 trillion that includes the gold ETFs. But the point here is that happened to gold in 10 years. Bitcoin is being adopted quite a bit faster than gold. And so my base case for the next 5 years is at least $319,000. Now that's a good investment at 50 grand where it's sitting right now, I would say. Buy Bitcoin, hold it for a long time, at least 4 years, and you will be happy that you did. Get as much as you can right now. We're going to start seeing these pieces of news come out, and then you'll be FOMOing in at 60, 70, 80. So, as a thought experiment, I just wanted to throw this last slide in. What if the Fed did the right thing? The United States government constantly talks about getting people back on their feet, helping the poor, helping people get through this pandemic, helping people get jobs back. That's all we hear. It's a lot of talk. We just got $3.5 trillion bill seemingly going to pass. Now, where's that money going? Who the hell knows? But I guarantee you, most of it will not go to the people that they say that it's going to. The neediest. it's not going to transfer the wealth from the rich to the poor. They're not Robin Hood. Sorry. The federal government is not Robin Hood. They are not helping you. Help yourself with Bitcoin. I'm done with my rant. But if you take that $3.5 trillion from this next infrastructure bill, let's do a Bitcoin infrastructure bill. I'm introducing today here on Bitcoin Summer Podcast the Bitcoin infrastructure bill of the United States. $3.5 trillion. We print it into existence no matter what anyway. Here we go. Let's do it. Come on. Get on my side. Vote for me. Give everyone 0.21 Bitcoin in the United States. That's 333 million people. That'll add $9.8 trillion to the Bitcoin market cap. That'll bring us to $10.72 trillion Bitcoin market cap. And the price will be $570,000. Immediately. The Fed printed it. They're investing in their citizens. And then watch all the other countries follow suit. $570,000 is going to be child's play by the time the money printing starts to buy Bitcoin. That will increase everyone's 0.21 Bitcoin value in US dollar amount to $119,761. $120,000 to every man, woman, and child in the United States. And they can do whatever they want with it. Now, I like this idea of that mayor, I think it was in Missouri, who wants to give everyone $500 in Bitcoin, but they have to keep it for 5 years. I like that idea. So maybe we can tag that on. I want to hear what you guys think. But $120,000 is a lot better than your last stimulus check. Let me guarantee you that, unless you stuck it into Bitcoin. It still wouldn't be that much. But the best idea to do with your stimulus check is to put it into Bitcoin. I hope you did that, especially during the first one. That's looking pretty good right now. But talk about ending poverty with $120,000 for everyone. And you're like, well, but you're printing this money out of midair. And doesn't that debase our currency? So that purchasing power goes down when you did that. They're doing it anyway. This is my point. And I'm going to end it there. I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed. Thanks for joining me today. This is Brian at Bitcoin Summer, and we will see you next time